We were all listening very carefully to your grammar, Carol.
Yikes.
And I don't think... No, I think you passed. I think you passed.
We'll tell you in a minute. Yes, here's good questions for you this morning. Do you know your split infinitives from your double negatives, and does it matter if you don't?
Catherine Fry and Rowena Curtin think so. They both work in publishing. They were so sick of correcting other people's mistakes, they decided to write a book dedicated to making us all make fewer mistakes.
Very good.
Very good. That's right, is it?
Yes.
Morning, both.
Yes, good morning. Well, you did have someone on earlier who said there were 10,000 less students applying to something or other, and I went, oh.
OK, so let's be real. So I've got a whole list from viewers of things that they'd like to get sorted out. Yeah. For our point of view, first of all, and viewers, less and fewer. Really simple rule, please.
Fewer is a specific number,
yes.
Less is more abstract. So less is more.
Give me an example.
But fewer people, because you can
fewer
count people.
Fewer people. So if you count something,
yes.
It should be fewer.
Yeah.
So if someone is in a queue in the 5 items or fewer, that would be correct, but not 5 items or less.
And it's often 5 items or less, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's
But
why.
if my teacup is too full, I can say can I have a bit less?
Yes.
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 Because fewer wouldn't make any sense.
No,
Yes,
exactly.
a bit less abstract something or other. So that's fine.
Oh my goodness.
I
Are we
make that
making
mistake
progress?
a lot.
Are we making
I
progress?
do make that mistake a lot. Have you got a favourite? Have you either of you got favourites of the things that bother people?
Well, it's not a favourite. It's between you and I really
That's
bugs
yours.
me. Yes, that.
I am a fewer and less person.
Yeah.
So talk us through the between.
It's between you and me, because you wouldn't say between we, would you?
No.
You'd say between you and me. So I mean, there was a trailer for some quite big BBC TV series a few months ago,
Oh dear.
and
and
the trailer, which was plugged relentlessly on Radio 4 and Radio 5,
Yes.
and you think, and the actor was saying, it's between you and I, this is quite a big decision, and I'm going. You know, this has been through a writer,
Yes.
a script editor, a director, the
Do you
actor.
let them get away with that for artistic licence or not?
Well, not for that particular
No.
programme, which
can
I'm
I
not
do-
going to name because it was inappropriate for that. But obviously, for artistic licence, some things it's
Yes.
fine.
Writers can
Another
do
one that people are very exercised about this morning was should of or should have. Would of, would have.
Oh no. Well, I mean, should have.
Always.
It's never of. Never.
Okay.
Paul asks. He says, I was always taught to say different from and similar to. The trend is to say different to. So where are we with that one?
In traditional circumstances, it is different from,
Yes.
but different to is acceptable. But your pedantic people will say it should be different from. I think either is acceptable.
So this dress is different from this dress than
Yeah.
to
Yes.
this dress.
In America, they say different than.
Now, you mentioned America. Lots of people very upset about Americanisms. How do you feel about Americanisms?
It's fine in America.
So what kind of things would you call Americanism that perhaps you wouldn't recommend using then?
That's a good.
Go get a coffee.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
go and
People do say
get
that.
me a coffee, or
Yes.
well, actually you wouldn't.
Or I
you'd
would
say,
like.
Yes, I would like.
I've heard a phrase that slipped in from America, I think, which is when people say, if you say you want to talk about an issue, they'll say, I would like to speak to that. Have you heard that phrase?
Yes.
That slipped in American
Yes,
politics
yes,
quite a bit.
yes.
Speak
Yes.
to an issue. Because that's wrong, isn't it?
Well, yes.
That can't be right.
No, it's not. It's not.
OK.
Can we do one more rule and then I'll ask you how you came up with all of this? Apostrophes. Too difficult to explain, or what do you...
It's basically a possessive
Yes.
or a contraction.
Yes.
So that's all it is?
Yes. I mean, there was a headline in one of the quality papers the other day which
Yes.
had
We talked
Mark Duggan, comma, whose death sparked last year's riots.
Yes.
How would you spell whose?
Oh, I don't know.
WHO apostrophe SE.
No, I would have...
That's
Who
the
is?
problem.
Yeah, I would have WHO apostrophe
Yes, because
S. It was his death.
Well, no, it's
Or it's
whose
him.
death. So it's the possessive. So there's WHOSE.
It's like being back in
Because who?
That's right.
Yeah,
No, don't
who
say
is would be.
This
you
is
know,
why I'm not a script editor, isn't
because WHO apostrophe S would mean who is. So
Of course it does.
Yeah. So Mark Duggan, who is death?
it? Yes.
No.
Yes, it doesn't make sense.
Can I ask, now, one of the things you talk about in the book is about styles of writing, you know, the various styles. And you talk about rhetoric. Now, rhetoric is very interesting because in politics it's used, that word is used a lot. So we'll have a Labour minister will come on and say, there's been all this conservative rhetoric about the NHS. Now that, these days, is taken to mean nonsense, isn't it? Or just huff and puff.
Yes.
Or it's a derogatory
overblown.
term.
Yes, it is a derogatory term.
But the literal meaning of it is truth, isn't it?
Yes, and also a passion. You know, the rhetoric was produced and made sense. But nowadays, it's, you know, someone on their hobby
And
horse
that's
is
to
having a
do
rant.
with the evolution of language.
And you mentioned
Meanings change over time. Sometimes.
You mentioned the Mark Duggan thing, which is obviously a very serious story, and you changed the meaning, don't you, by the way you write things,
Yes.
which is very important.
Absolutely.
Then if people
the
say,
reader
is it
doesn't know what you mean.
important, then
Yes.
that makes it very important, doesn't
Yes.
I
it?
think that's our main point about the book, is clarity
Yes.
and comprehension and understanding and making yourself understood.
Clear communication.
Clear
And
communication.
can you both, hand on heart, say that if you tweet or you send messages or whatever, you always write things correctly?
Yes.
Do you really? Everything is written out in full?
I don't really tweet, but my text messages
Are all written
Yes,
out
with
in
all
full?
the
That's not quite true, actually. I had a text from Rowena once where
Oh, go on.
she put something like, "Will be late. I'll have to leave yours early because I have." And she'd written everything in text speak apart from "because I have to leave for a parents' evening." And she'd made text, parents spelt out with the apostrophe in the correct place. Just
See,
to
we're all
prove you.
guilty, aren't we?
Since she said that, though.
But why, for people watching today, why are you right? Is it because you've looked at the history of all of this, or what? You know, language does change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, language change, and I think
And
we
that's
should.
a good thing.
Absolutely, we should take on board new developments like
And new words.
New words. We're very keen on portmanteau words, which two words combining together like
To make a new word.
chillax and romance and
You like
rom-com.
those?
I do.
Well, see, I find those really irritating.
Oh, I like rom-coms and emoticon.
Paul
like that.
Simon is very upset by the phrase, I got off of my bicycle.
Which is actually fine in American.
Yes.
Is it?
Got off of is fine in American, but
But not
here.
here.
And quickly, just tell us about myself. When should it be used?
Well,
People-
you said it yourself.
Yes.
When should it be used? That kind of thing. When, for emphasis and for when it is a reflexive pronoun.
We will all think a little more carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
never going to be able to write or speak again.
Catherine and Rowena's book, Grammar for Grown-Ups, is out today.
Now.
My identity, I would say, is
British and Pakistani.
Muslim.
I'm English. I'm an English Pakistani.
I see myself as a Yorkshire lad.
firmly Scottish.
Well, I live in Rochdale.
I'm proud to be British and Pakistani.
I can enjoy two cultures.
But if somebody was to call me English, well, I may get a little bit upset at that.
Pakistani, actually.
I mean, I think in the early years, I mean, we used to think, oh, well, look, we're not Indian, we're actually Pakistanis, you know.
People don't realise.
I try and tell them that, look, it's not an Indian restaurant, it's a Pakistani restaurant.
The worst thing I've had is when it was a girl that I used to work with years ago.
I don't really want to say the word.
If I were to say, like, that word, can I actually say it?
And she said, oh, I'm going to the Paki shop.
Can I say the word? It's Paki.
We're not Pakis, we're Pakistanis.
The word means clean, so how can you be offended at being clean?
She went, no, you know, you're not a Paki, are you? So, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm Pakistani. That makes me a Paki.
Pakistan's in bloody India, mate. Pakistan's in bloody Pakistan, mate.
I remember being in Pakistan, it must have been the early 80s, and I remember someone saying to me, well, we're Pakistanis, but you'll always only ever be a Paki.
Pakis, I don't think they like the word Paki.
This is so Pakistani. How many more details could you have fitted onto that card?
I don't want to be British. I've been here all my life. I don't know what it is to be British. I might be British if you tell me what it is to be British.
Coming up next, we're taking a look at the Pakistani community in Britain today. Is the word Paki still offensive, or has it been reclaimed? Phone in and tell us what you think.
I think it is changing. They definitely have got laws in this country, on I don't think religion has... It doesn't... Originally, we come from the different background. A lot of very energetic...
It depends on the context, isn't it, where you say it.
When you say Aussie, it's like sending a joke in a way.
Yeah,
it's
not offensive.
It's like, if it's like another person in like another colour, it's different. You feel offended.
I don't know when the word Paki first came into use. Quite clearly, it couldn't have come into use before Pakistan was created.
Paki was the perfect word because it's a short, rather abrasive word. It was right on the nose, right in the right place. It was a new word for a new country and a new community in this country.
I wasn't aware that the blame for the word Paki was originating in Scotland, but thinking back to it, my first introduction to the word was to the Pakistani guy in the corner shop. You know, where people in my school, people in my street would say, "Oh, go to the Pakis, get us a pint of milk," and it was normal. He was called a Paki to his face.
The first example that we've been able to discover of the word in print actually comes, that's rather ironically, in that great liberal organ, The Guardian.
I think it was mid-60s.
Do they talk about it as an offensive word? I mean, I've never checked.
Paki, or pack, derogatory or offensive, often applied specifically to an immigrant from Pakistan.
I'm sure the phrase, stupid Paddy and Paki has certainly appeared, and I've heard the word Paki on Only Fools and Horses 20 years ago.
What's the point? All the animals will be dead. Won't be able to grow nothing because all the earth will be contaminated. Where are we going to get something to eat?
Bound to be a little Paki shop open somewhere.
Recall a character actually called Paki Paddy.
Oh, my name is Kevin O'Grady.
Paki Paddy!
And what part of Ireland are you from, then? Burnt Cork?
It shocked people in the 1960s. There were loud calls for it to be banned and so on, but the very liberal BBC said, no, we can't ban this programme. It's making a very valid point about a racial bigot, and it's important to show it.
It was in the, I think, late 60s and the 70s I became aware of anti-Pakistani jokes. You'll have people like Bernard Manning and Jim Davidson not using the word Paki overtly, but, underlying connotations were quite clear.
A Pakistani wanted converting, so they took him to Leeds rugby ground and kicked him over the bar.
Well, I've always enjoyed racist jokes, unfortunately. But, of course, our family, like many other Pakistani families, were also the victim of these jokes as well.
I believe that all the Catholics and Jews and Protestants and Methodists should all get together and attack the Pakistan.
There's no danger of laughter ever fueling the bigotry of the extreme right. Because, as I've said before, and I'll always say it, till the day I die, you never take a joke seriously.
They actually think they're English because they're born it. That means if a dog's born in a stable, it's a horse.
Bernard Manning is living in cloud cuckoo land if he thinks that what he says and how he uses racist jokes doesn't affect people. Somebody growing up in the East End of London who was the butt of many of those jokes, it's an incredibly hurtful, traumatic experience.
My father, who came from Pakistan, from Karachi, died here in 1970, and I came over for his funeral. I was still in Uganda studying, and this was, of course, the height of Powellism. And when I was going to the cemetery in a cab, the cabbie, I was talking to my cousin about England and who we were and blah, blah, blah. And the cabbie took my money, which was all in change, and threw the money into my face and said, "F off, Paki. We don't want you here."
It would permeate every aspect of school life, every single aspect. When I was in a needlework class, there was this girl who would actually substitute my name for the word Paki. So she would say, "Paki, pass me those needles. Paki, do this. Paki, do that." And, the teacher overheard it, didn't care, wasn't bothered. It was deemed acceptable.
I just was devastated, I have to say. I mean, I was angry, so I still had some copper in my hand and I threw it back at him. But it was truly shocking.
What I remember most vividly was a teacher, a French teacher, who, on the rare occasions when I would put my hand up in order to answer a question in French, he would always refer to me as Pakistani Pete. And this went on for some time, and I was very, very annoyed and humiliated by this. In fact, I was going crazy, probably, inside. So I started to call him Jock, because he was Scottish, at which point he went crazy.
In my school, there was a South African Asian teacher who was referred to as Paki by other teachers. And in fact, that generated quite a controversy, I remember very well.
And so eventually he started to give me lines, started to punish me for calling him Jock. And so we had a huge dispute, and then I was sent to the headmaster. And eventually I was suspended from school. So I spent a few days wandering around Bromley High Street on my own because I was too afraid to tell my parents I'd been suspended from school.
Told my mum about it. She said, don't worry, sticks and stones may hurt your bones, but names will never hurt you. So, yeah, you go to school and experience that and see if you can live with it.
And we were supposed to feel that we had no worth, that we were inhuman, that being a Paki was to be the lowest of the low.
I'm the only Asian black person living on this estate. And I've been here 13 years and I'm still not accepted. Paki, when it's used, it is done with intent. It hurts and it offends. I have been shot at on 2 occasions with live ammunition. There have been 6 petrol bomb attacks on our property. People have made attempts at my life with knives. I've been stoned, abused. It is something really, right, it's very hard to basically come to terms with, in this, that this has all happened to me, right, purely because I'm Pakistani.
I guess one of the best-known sort of compound words formed with Paki, which we find from the earliest periods, going back to the 60s, is Paki bashing and Paki basher.
The album Power in the Darkness had a title track which trod the dangerous path of parody.
Freedom from the niggers and the Pakis and the unions. Freedom from the gypsies and the Jews. Freedom from the long-haired layabouts and students.
Freedom from the likes of you. It didn't seem like there was too much distance to go before we slipped into the kind of intolerant society that Germany had become during the 30s. I was trying to make the point that to our enemies, we were all equally vile, and we would either stand together or sink together.
One of the things that happened was that skinheads came. And I remember kids saying, you know, we're with the NF now, or my dad supports the NF, or whatever, or going to people's houses and the father saying we're with the NF and so on. So I became aware that we were living in quite a frightening atmosphere.
For the first time through your letterbox, you got 4 manifestos: Labour, Conservative, Liberal and National Front, you know, masquerading as a respectable political party. And it was frankly terrifying.
Vicious racial attacks by gangs and individuals are occurring all too frequently. This 14-year-old boy had 27 stitches inserted in his back after being knifed on his way to school.
How important is the violent aspect of being a skinhead, the beating up of Pakistanis?
We don't just walk down Brook Lane and start on any Paki. If they come over and start a fight, then we fight.
The word Paki should not have been a derogatory term in the first place. I think the right wing hijacked this word. Paki means pure. I mean, isn't it a laugh that these skinheads or whoever have been calling us pure all this time without them knowing? It's a joke. I reckon it definitely should be reclaimed and take it away from the right wing and use it ourselves in a positive sense. So the next step for me was to put it onto a T-shirt and hooded tops to show that, like, I am proud to be a Paki. This word, as long as it's used in a positive sense, should be okay. I mean, the problem is when people use it with aggression and in the wrong context. Because I think any word used with aggression in the wrong context can be a problem. That looks pretty good. Pack 1, the sign of the new community. Afghans come from Afghanistan, and Uzbeks come from Uzbekistan, and Kazakhs come from Kazakhstan, so why can't Pakis come from Pakistan?
Yeah, I'm Pakistani, and I don't really care if people call me Paki or not, because I'm proud of who I am.
You have to obviously know the person, like, if you're saying it as a joke. If someone else comes up to you on the street and just calls you a Paki, then it's obviously a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, you're driving a car, and you don't always hear the full word, key, as they drive by. Key! I'm thinking, what keys?
There's a big difference between the kind of humour you used to get in the 60s and 70s against all blacks and Asians, really, which was not laughing with them, but laughing at them.
You're unemployed? Yes, please. Only 1 day a week I'm working.
Oh, I'm sorry, very, very sorry too.
What do you do then? I'm going to the unemployment exchange to be collecting my money.
Well, like a lot of other Pakistani families, we always used to enjoy Mind Your Language. We particularly liked the Pakistani character, me and my sister, because he reminded us of our dad.
Because that's where he came from. When he came over, that's what was expected of him. He came on the set, oh, I'm very sorry, this curry is absolutely the chicken tikka masala. Oh, sir.
I laughed with my parents because I think they enjoyed it because that was the only Pakistani in the media. And therefore, they must have felt some empathy towards him.
I just felt really uncomfortable with them because I would go to school and I'd be the one experiencing, you know, the fallout from the kind of humour that those kids would have seen the night before. But my parents loved it.
Oh, blimey. I get more money for not being working than when I'm working.
And the clothes that he wore, they were very accurate. I mean, there was like, you know, my dad, my uncles, they were all wearing that gear, wearing the kind of, you know, the woolly hat, the karakuli topi it's called.
It would give me much pleasure for you to share my humble house. But unfortunately, my cousin and his family, and also his cousin and his family, is staying with me.
It was confusing. On the one hand, you had somebody that you had an Asian person, or dressed up as an Asian person, on the television at prime time. And that gave you a bit of comfort that you could see your community reflected on primetime television.
You got two families both living in one house? Two families both living in one room?
You knew in your heart it was wrong, but you actually still were drawn towards it.
Like all these stereotypes, it's based on a little bit of truth, and the fact that at home, you know, we like had like a big car outside, but we had a hole in the carpet at home. You know, I mean, we did have a kind of slightly different value system. Like my dad wanted to get a Mercedes. You know, he didn't care about anything else. That was his aim when he came to this country, Mercedes.
I think the watershed moment where a minority culture hits the mainstream culture comes where songs and films and books and TV programs aren't made about the subject of the minority. They're just great stories are told through those media, which happen incidentally to have characters who are gay, who are black, or who, in the case of Beautiful Laundrette, were gay and Pakistani.
Hello, darling. Fucking nice bear. What's it?
The love affair between Omar and Johnny, coming mixed with the kind of overtones of racial intolerance and Paki bashing, where the car gets surrounded by this gang of thugs, and then Omar sees Johnny through the window, and he gets out into the danger, but goes and eyeballs Johnny, and you see this frisson take place between them.
It's me.
These are kids that Omar would have grown up with. Now they're attacking him as a Paki. But of course he can appeal to Johnny as a friend, a boy who also knew Omar's father.
How are you? All right? Working?
So at that moment I was trying to say a number of things which I guess came out of my own childhood to do with the complexity of knowing these people, being their enemy as a Paki, but also being their friend from the school days.
Like me friends.
Ring us then.
I will.
Nothing was ever quite the same again, the way that we as white people looked on Pakistani people. We felt we'd been let in through the door, shown inside people's houses.
It was remarkable. It really opened up my eyes to the possibility that there's more to simply being a doctor, lawyer, professions. There are people in the arts, and you can actually express what's happening, the racism, within a great film.
I think a community, comes of age if it has the ability to laugh at itself. I think that shows supreme confidence. But I think we have to draw a distinction between being able to laugh and subjecting a community to either ridicule or to certain stereotypical characterizations.
Goodness gracious me!
When the Goodness Gracious Me first came out, I know myself and my other Asian friends sat around watching that thinking, are we comfortable with this? You know, again, critiquing it before we were allowing ourselves to enjoy it.
Well, you see, there was no Pakistanis in Goodness Gracious Me. Why is that?
The Right Reverend Bishop of Hounslow.
Oh, my God, the bishops are back!
Goodness Gracious Me was not a Pakistani program. It was an Indian program. It was a very Pacific kind of Indian humor set, in the Indian community.
Well, if it isn't Dinesh and Shashi Kapoor. Well, it isn't. It's Dennis and Charlotte Cooper.
In the British mind, there's no real distinction between Indians and Pakistanis. We are all lumped together in one monolithic whole.
To be Indian British is to be cool. The new Bollywood is such an extravaganza which translates easily into the West. They're middle class, they have spending power, and also, importantly, they're not so censorious as the Pakistani community is.
If you say to somebody, I'm from India, they'll go, oh, great, I was there last year. I went to Goa, or we went to Jaipur, we went to Bengal. There's more of a kind of a rapport. As Pakistani, they'll kill the conversation dead. They'll be like, oh, God, oh, really? We don't know anything about that. We don't know much about you.
I think it's easier with the Indian community on the whole than with the Pakistani community because the issue of religion is not so sharp.
The Indian Hindu communities have distanced themselves, and some Sikh communities as well. In Oldham, for instance, I remember after the riots, they said that don't call us Asians because these are Muslims and we are different from them.
I've got cases in which people don't say, well, do you come from India or Pakistan, before they're punched in the face or before they're thrown off in an aeroplane because they're seen as a terrorist.
I mean, how can you have a democracy when people are locked up without a trial?
Obviously, I mean, there's racism and discrimination exists in all cultures.
It is that there are perceptions in the host community that some of us represent a threat to them.
12:20 p.m.
You fucking lucky bastard, you're all gonna fucking get it.
6:51 a.m.
You fucking packies. You're all gonna fucking die now.
Yeah, but 9/11, you see, wasn't done by Pakistani Muslims, done by Arab Muslims, so they're obviously differentiating.
But we were all branded still as terrorists. And the media shows Islam as a bad thing, but then in the world it's become the fastest growing religion after 9/11, so that doesn't fit in with what the media is showing.
The day after 9/11, our local Islamic centre, somebody drove by in a car and fired a shot at it out of a car. You know, an appalling thing to happen.
Even within the governments as well. People like myself are looked upon with suspicion. I don't know why, but there is a suspicion that you could just be walking past. If they don't know you, everybody jumps.
My brother with the beard, Osama bin Laden.
And post 9/11, there is this real dichotomy. There's real tension between people finding their identity in terms of their religion and what's growing up is this politics of identity.
For a long time, I think we've always worried about our identity and what sort of identity we want to have. Well, an identity is something you put together from a number of sources. You know, I'm a father, I'm a son. You know, sometimes on Saturdays I'm a QPR supporter. And I think most Pakistanis now are quite aware that they can put together the Pakistani part of themselves, the Muslim part of themselves, the part of themselves that identifies with Britain, the part of themselves that identifies with their town, with their street, with their city, with their school, and so on.
If somebody said to me, what are you? I would probably say, I'm a Muslim, right? And then they say, well, what are you next? And then I would say, Pakistani.
I'm very Pakistani in that I speak my language, I eat the food, I spend a lot of time with other Pakistanis, but I'm also very British.
Well, I don't want to be British. I've been here all my life. I don't know what it is to be British. No one's ever told me what it is to be British.
Being British is, for me, first. I love this country.
So we all British, yeah? All right, we all got British passports.
I'm British, but I'm Muslim. I'm a Muslim. I'm not British. I'm not Pakistani. I'm just Muslim. I'm Asian. Other people go, I'm Pakistani. Doesn't matter where I was born. I'm Pakistani.
There is a problem. If you can't be both, really.
Yeah, you can be a bit of both, you know? You can be a bit of both.
I'm sorry, I don't think you can be both.
I guess in the end I would call myself British, but being British seems to me to involve all kinds of other complex notions.
I've never known what it is to be English, and no one's ever told me, so I can't be English or British. I don't have no loyalty.